Hello everyone and welcome back to Arctic Retro, and in today's episode I'm gonna take you through the installation and the configuration of the Amiga emulator for Windows, WinUAE. WinUAE is a very good Amiga emulator, and it of course runs on Windows only, and I'm here in Windows 11, and to install the emulator you of course need to find it first, but you just need to search for WinUAE and it will show up as WinUAE Amiga emulator on winuae.net. So here we are in the home page, and here you can download the latest version, and yeah, there's some information here like the basic features and things like that, and you have a support forum. Well, we're gonna download it, so I just click download, and I'm installing the 64-bit version, so I'm gonna download that. Just gonna click on it, and yeah, I have already installed it, so it will just prompt me to change or repair, so I'm just gonna hit repair, and yeah, we're ready to start it. By the way, my desktop here is a very nice image of my hometown Bodø at night, and along here you can see the runway for Bodø Airport. The airport is around here, but the runway runs across almost the whole city. And here is the city center with the harbor, and yeah, this tower here is a communications tower standing on a little mountain right behind the city. Alright, enough about that. Now WinUAE should be installed, and you just start it. And now it comes up with a message telling me that I don't have the required system ROMs, because the emulator does not contain the Kickstart ROM versions you need for any Amiga emulating. So that you will need to find and download yourself, but there are several places to find those. That's not an issue at all. Alright, so this is the configuration panel of the program, and here you see a lot of different properties you can change. I'm not gonna go through everything because I simply don't know enough about everything here, but yeah, you have the settings, you have the paths where the emulator finds its files or stores files. The quick start is if you want to create an emulator and start it real fast without any particular configuration, but you of course need to select either a floppy disk image or a hard disk image. And here's the different configuration you can create. I have already one here called Amiga 1200 HD with Workbench 3.1. The hardware section is about configuring all the different hardware settings, like the CPU you want to run on, if you have MMU or FPU. The chipset let you configure what kind of chipset you're going to use. There's advanced settings, and here is the ROM settings where you configure the ROM you want to use from a file that you have downloaded. RAM is how much chip and fast RAM and things about the RAM settings. Floppy drives is where you configure where your floppy disks are, and same with CD and hard drives. Expansions is about different expansions boards that you can configure up and use. Yeah, RTG graphics card, I don't know about that. Some hardware info. And the host section is about configuring your own machine where the emulator runs. So for example, what display are you going to use if you have several graphics cards or monitors, refresh rate, and yeah, PAL or NTSC, things like that. Sound is about configuring the sound, what sound output are you going to use, and things like that. Game ports is where you configure the ports for the joystick or the mouse. It's configured to use the Windows mouse in port 1 and the keyboard mapped joystick in port 2. I/O ports is where you configure things like parallel and serial port. Input is where you can test the different or remap the different mappings to the game ports, for example. I have game ports panel here. It's now set up to use the Xbox One controller. Output, I think, is where you can store a capture of the emulator. I haven't really tested that, so I'm not really sure. Yeah, and there's some other advanced settings that I'm really not familiar with, so I'm not gonna go into that. All right, so if you have a configuration, then you can just hit the start. So I already have the A1200, just gonna hit start, and it should start up. And now it comes with the Amiga Workbench, which means I need a floppy disk to boot from. So that emulator configuration was just a test. The Amiga 1200 doesn't come with Kickstart 1.3, but if you press F12, you can go back to the settings, and yeah, in the ROM section, you can see I only have one Kickstart ROM 1.3. The AROS KS is something that built in that comes with the emulator. Haven't used that. So if I now go to the paths here, and you can see here system ROMs, and the path for that is this one. You can of course change it to something else, but yeah, now I actually downloaded and copied some other Kickstart ROMs into this folder. So the ROMs are here in my WinUAE folder, and now I go back to paths, and now you need to rescan ROMs to get the WinUAE to find them. So it found ROMs, and now if we go back to ROM, then it should be listed here. Yeah, here we see the different ROMs. So here's a couple for A1200. I'm going to select that one, 3.0, and now I can actually start this one. And there you go, you have a boot screen with 3.0 ROM, but we still have no floppy or hard drive. So it's a little bit confusing how you load and save configurations, but anyway, I now have a new A1200 config here, and we want to make a floppy drive. So I go to floppy drives, and I want to attach a floppy disk image, an ADF file. So I need to find that. And that can be any floppy disk image. We can, for example, load the Defender of the Crown, and then just hit start, and it should start loading Defender of the Crown. And whenever you are in the emulator, the settings close, and if you want to open the settings again, you can just press F12. And here I have all different kinds of Workbench versions. So I'm going to try and simply run the Workbench 1.3, the old one. So now it's loading Workbench 1.3 on an Amiga 1200 emulated. Okay, so now we're in the good old Workbench. And when you're in the emulator, it traps the Windows mouse, so you can't move out, but then you just hit Alt-Tab to move out. So I just made the window larger, but if you press Ctrl F12, it will turn into full screen mode. And Ctrl F12 again goes back. Alright, so now we loaded from floppy, but I wanna use hard drive, so I'm gonna create a new hard drive instead. Alright, so now I'm gonna take you through how to set up a hard drive and install Workbench on that. To start with that, you select the first of the 6 floppy disks, which is the Workbench install floppy. Alright, so I'm gonna create a 200 megabytes hard drive and just click create and then you give it a name and I'm calling it A1200-2. I have already made a -1. So now that is created and you can click OK. There's nothing more you need to do. And here you see the device DH0 and the path to the file and some settings for the hard drive. Okay, and the hard drive is just created. It isn't formatted or anything, so you need to do that first. And it says here not a DOS disk in device DH0, and that is correct. So now we need to install the install floppy, and I just selected here Workbench 3.0, A1200, A4000, M10, disk 1 of 6 install. And you can actually save some time by putting another disk, the next disk in drive number 2, and 2 of 6 is the Workbench. Not really sure what the different versions are. Some are tagged with A and M and exclamation mark. And then I press restart and start. So now it will boot from the install floppy. Yeah, and we're in, and as you can see now it has loaded both Workbench and install from the 2 floppy drives, and the DH0 is marked as NDOS. So we need to format the drive, so you just select the drive and yeah, the simplest way of doing that is format disk on the Workbench menu. And we'll call it A1200. And yeah, I guess we can use quick format because this is not a real hard drive, so no point in using ordinary formatting. Alright, format. So that went really quick, and now we have a hard drive here with the name A1200 and it has a trash can. So now we're ready to install and go into the install directory on the floppy disk, and here's also some HD setup tools. You can partition the drive if you want to do so, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to go right into the install, and yeah, there's different versions, languages, and I'm going to select English. Probably that is the difference between the different installation floppies, its languages. So now it will take some time and you need to swap the floppy disks around a bit, but yeah, it's not that time consuming. Proceed, and we're going to install release 3. And I'm considering myself as a novice user in this area. Select English language, no printer, and I'm gonna install the Norwegian key map because I have a Norwegian keyboard. So now it starts copying, and you see the progress up in the install window, how far it's come, 12% done. So it will automatically start copying from disk number 2 if you have that in DF1. Okay, so now it asks for Amiga Extras disk. And then you just go into the settings and change to Amiga Extras. And it will probably try to load from disk number 4 right after that. So I just select disk 4 storage. and then press OK, and it will automatically continue with the installation. Almost done. The installation is now complete, and remove the Amiga install disk and select Proceed to reboot your Amiga. Okay, so I'm going to eject both the floppy disks. Then press Proceed, and it should boot into the hard drive now. Yeah, and it did, and it was lightning fast. Alright, so now we have ourselves an Amiga 1200 machine emulated with a hard drive of 200 megabytes, and yes, we can start installing some games perhaps, or software. We can see what's on the disk. Not much there, but yeah, it works, and it's really simple as you saw. However, I want to have some more RAM, so I'm gonna up it to 8 megabytes. This machine has 32 gigabytes of RAM, so there's more than enough to use. Okay, so I set the slow RAM to 1.8 megabytes and reset. Yeah, now we have 8.3 graphics and 1.3 other map. So now I'll go into configurations here, and I save the current configuration. If we completely quit the whole WinUAE and restart it again, you'll see that the hard drive and floppy drives and the RAM that you had is now gone, and you can go to configurations and load it. And now we have back the hard drive. So we can take a look at the directory where this hard drive is actually stored. So here it is, the number 2 here, and we see that it's 204 megabyte, or around there, 204,800 kilobytes. So now we can just copy this whole hard drive and take it with us to another machine, or yeah, it's just a file. Okay, then I want to install some games, or try to run some games at least, and I have a collection actually here. It's a ISO file that's a DVD image of 8 gigabytes full of Amiga games and software. And yeah, I can just mount it as a disk in Windows, and now it's a DVD drive E, and yeah, here's a lot of stuff. So games from 0 up to Z. So I just need to come up with a game I want to test out. Alright, I found a few games, Civilization and the Winter Games and Unreal. And the two last one are VHD load games that can be copied and run from the hard drive, and you don't need the floppy disk. So I'm going to try that. Okay, let's try the first game. I'm going to add the floppy disk, and I'm going to first try the Civilization game. It's a AGA chipset requirement, seems like. So I'm going to insert disk 1 into DF0 and disk 2 into DF1. Okay, so let's see now. So there's Civ 1 and Civ 2. And here's actually an installer as well, so that's nice. I'm going to install Civilization now into this hard drive. So that was it. The installation is complete, and we can reset. So here it is, Civilization. You can put it on the desktop. Let's see if it will start then. We'll select 1 for mouse plus keyboard. Alright. This is Sid Meier's Civilization, a great game. So if you run it full screen, of course it will be a bit pixelated. So I'm gonna be a Roman civilization, and my name is Caesar. So that actually crashed the machine now. I'm not really sure what it is, but you get the point. You can install onto the hard drive and run games. But of course there might be something that's not compatible with the emulator or even the machine, you never know. I haven't tried this game before on an Amiga. So the next thing I want to try out is to map a directory on my Windows PC to a hard drive here on the emulator and run a VHD load game from there. So I'm gonna call this Win, and I'm gonna select the directory for Winter Games. Okay. So there is Winter Games. Let's see now if we can run this. So it's not able to open VHD load, so I need to install that first. So I'm actually installing the VHD load now by using the LHA command and installing it into my A1200 hard drive. So successful, and now we should have VHD load here. Yeah, so let's see now and try to install it. Unable to open your tool installer. Alright, so I actually didn't record that, but in order for the installer to run, you actually need to install the installer 43.3 program. So I needed to download that and extract it and copy the content and the installer executable into the C folder on the hard drive. So now we should be able to install the VHD load. So I'm just gonna go through it, select the defaults, and it will install VHD load into the C folder. So it is a little bit complicated, not straightforward to install programs on an Amiga, not as easy as you're used to on a Windows machine. So now it is complete, and we should be able to run Winter Games as a VHD load game. Yeah, now it actually starts, so yeah, not registered. Okay, so that was how far we came with this DOS error. So this obviously need an older version of Kickstart. So I can remove Winter Games then, it won't work. I try and load Unreal. So let's see if we can run this one then. Alright, so seems to be loading. Press fire to go. Nice animation. Okay, I'm a dragon and I'm flying and shooting, so this was not the Unreal that you can run on a PC. So playing with the Xbox controller works just fine. It's very responsive. I'm low of shield. Game over. Alright, final game I'm gonna test is the Commodore Advent. yeah, I just added the two floppy disks to the emulator and started it. I want to go on a raid. It's a long time since I played it, just test it once in a while. Alright, that was it for this video. It became rather long. Hope you enjoyed the content and that you learned to use an Amiga emulator on your PC and run games. So, thanks for watching, and special thanks to my supporters at Patreon. See you, bye bye!